RFK Racing announces a new sponsor and driver. Who could it possibly be? Todd Gilliland has a new number for 2025 and a new sponsor. Plus, Travis Mack has a new home where he will crew chief at in the Cup Series next season. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. Kind of a busy news day. On Tuesday, we got the RFK announcement. We found out what Todd Gilliland's number is going to be next year. Legacy Motor Club made another announcement. They've decided to sign, once again, another person, which if you follow me on Twitter, you knew about after the Roval race back in October. But we'll start off with Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, who announced on Tuesday, officially, finally, certainly not the surprise announcement that was Trackhouse buying Chip Ganassi Racing. Instead, this was one of the worst kept secrets ever, like the Lakers drafting Bronny James. Kroger is headed to RFK Racing in 2025. They will be a sponsor on all three cars at various points during the season. RFK Racing also announced that they will have a third full-time car next season with Ryan Preece behind the wheel of that race car. Again, something that we've known about for quite some time. This was one of the worst kept secrets in the garage area. Kroger moves over from JT Daugherty Racing, where they were at from 2010 until 2024. They will now be at Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, according to Sports Business Journal. This deal is likely somewhere in the low 8 figures. For the math whizzes at home, that's over $10 million annually, and how much money that they're putting into this sponsorship. The car that Ryan Preece will be driving is the number 60 car. RFK even made a joke on social saying, you guys really thought we were going to drive the number 59 car? Yeah, no, it was always going to be the 60 car. That just makes the most sense. So for Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, they land a behemoth of a sponsor. All three drivers were at the Kroger headquarters in Cincinnati, Ohio on Tuesday for this announcement. They all got their own little Kroger emoji people. If you have a Kroger in your area, you've likely seen the commercials and the animation style that Kroger has. Kind of creepy, but hey, we've got NASCAR drivers in it as well. Overall, for RFK, this is a massive, massive landing for them. They went and threw the hook out there and they landed an absolute monster in Kroger. Tad and Jody Geschecter, obviously part of the JTG Daugherty Racing ownership group, no longer going to be there. They've divested out of that. All that news should come out sooner rather than later. They helped orchestrate Kroger moving over to RFK. In the Sports Business Journal article talking about this move from JTG Daugherty Racing to RFK, they mentioned that Kroger already has 20 brands that they sell within their stores lined up to be on these race cars in 2025, which is really, really good. It's the same way that Menards operates, where essentially Kroger buys the sponsorship for the car and then they sell off part of that sponsorship to the brands that they have, whether it be Ziploc or Clorox or whoever else that you'll see on those race cars next season. I will say the promo photos of all three cars decked out in the Kroger paint schemes, they all look really, really clean. And I would like to see one of the races in 2025 have all three cars painted up just like that and have three Kroger cars out there. I would really like that. It'd be like when Fastenal, had all of the Roush cars back at the Coke 600 years ago at this point. But for Kroger, they said some things. They thanked Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for the memories and, of course, winning them a Daytona 500. They went to victory lane with him this year as well at Talladega in the fall. But Kroger executive Brent Cox was asked about the switch from JTG to RFK, and he said, quote, Kroger has been involved in racing here for a while, and we really were looking to get to a bigger team and to have more opportunities to frankly go out and win some races. Okay. That is kind of taking a shot at JTG, kind of taking a shot at Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I mean, he did win 2 races for you in recent years, including a Daytona 500, which is pretty good, all things considered, and for the team size that they were. But I get wanting to move over to a bigger team. Now, let's talk about the driver of that team, Ryan Preece. If you say you want to go out and win some races, no offense to Ryan Preece and his legion of fans from the Northeast, I'm not sure that's the guy that you want to really put all the momentum behind. Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, yeah, they are proven race winners. Ryan Preece, we just have not seen that track record from him in the Cup Series as of yet. In Ryan Preece's 72 starts with Stewart-Haas Racing over the last 2 years, he has 2 top 5 finishes and 7 top 10 finishes. He has an average finish of 20.9 as well in that time period. Like I said, not exactly the guy that I would be like, hey, we want to go out and win races. We're signing Ryan Preece. Okay, He hasn't won any races. So we need to start with winning a race as of now. Now, don't get me wrong. I think moving from the 47 car over to RFK makes a ton of sense from Kroger's standpoint. Like, yeah, that RFK is a team that is definitely on the upswing. They have a really good relationship with Ford. They're putting a lot of money into their facility, into the infrastructure of that team, and they continually have gotten better since Brad Keselowski has gotten there. And yeah, you can see that. They put both cars in victory lane this year. They should have a really good season in 2025 as well. 100% understand that. I'm going to be interested to see how Ryan Preece performs next year. Like I've said in multiple videos, Roush from the Keselowski Racing believes that Ryan Preece has not shown his true potential in the Cup Series yet. And maybe he hasn't, right? The sample size is kind of there. He's made 187 NASCAR Cup Series starts. He has 4 top 5s, 16 top 10s in that process. Best finish of, I believe, 3rd at Talladega. I just need to see a little bit more from him, and we're going to find out next year what that's going to be. That car will be a chartered entry. They are leasing a charter from RFK Racing for the 2025 season. Other announcements about crew chief and stuff like that have not been made as of yet, but Kroger headed to RFK in 2025. Ryan Preece also will drive a 3rd car for the team. After 3 seasons in the number 38 car at Front Row Motorsports and 1 race in the number 36 car, Todd Gilliland, using lessons learned from his father, will pilot the Loves car in 2025 when he takes over the number 34 car at Front Row Motorsports with that Loves sponsorship, replacing the departing Michael McDowell, who is headed over to Spire for the 2025 season. He'll drive the number 71 over there. Todd, though, now gets into the marquee car at Front Row Motorsports with their biggest sponsor, that being Loves. He drove, with some of the Loves sponsorship when he was in the Truck Series and that number 38 F-150 when he was with Front Row down there. Now he moves into the number 1 car, essentially, over at FRM. It's at least the flagship car. He will, of course, have a teammate in Noah Gragson. Should have another teammate in that 3rd car, depending on how they want to operate that, whether they're going to operate 3 open cars or they're not going to do it until they figure out what the appeal is for the injunction that they've requested for the charters and the lawsuit and everything that goes along with that. Could possibly maybe be Zane Smith, but do fully expect Noah Gragson to be in that 2nd car as of now. What will his number be? I've heard number 4 has kind of been floated around. We'll have to wait and see if that's what happens. But for Todd, this is great for him, right? I mean, he goes from last year having to share his ride with Zane Smith in that number 36 car in 2023 to now taking over the flag car over at Front Row Motorsports. And for Todd, I think that he's a guy that has really matured into being a really formidable Cup driver. Is he a guy that's going to contend for wins every week? No, because FRM's just not there yet. But he has shown a lot of promise over the last 2 seasons even, that he could be a guy that very much develops into a Chris Buescher type of driver, and I don't think that's a bad comparison at all. I think it's a really good comparison, and that's not a knock on Chris Buescher. It's a guy that has a lot of speed, can be in contention, but isn't going to go out there and probably win 6-7 races a year like Kyle Larson or Denny Hamlin or somebody like that, but rather a guy that can probably get you 1 to 2 wins a year. And maybe this is a stepping, stone to another ride, potentially a bigger ride for him in the future. But for Todd, I think this is a great opportunity. And now he can put on his Loves fire suit. His dad can put on his Loves fire suit, and they can point at each other like the Spider-Man meme. And it's like, oh yeah, this is kind of the same. Also, makes me feel super old that I watched David Gilliland drive the number 38 Loves car. Now I'm watching his son drive the number 34 Loves car. It's just time's a continuous circle. It just doesn't slow down at this point. But Todd Gilliland taking over the number 34 car in 2025. And to close out the show, Travis Mack, who was crew chief over on the number 16 car at Kaulig Racing in the Cup Series this year, has a new home for 2025. He left the team following the race at the Roval back in October, and I told you then that he was likely headed to Legacy Motor Club. That was the expected landing spot for him, and now Legacy Motor Club officially welcomed him to the club, as they like to say. He will be the crew chief for the number 42 Toyota Camry next year, driven by John Hunter Nemechek. Yes, in the tweet, it did not mention John Hunter Nemechek. In the press release, it does mention John Hunter Nemechek. There's a lot of people that think that JHN will not be in that car next year. Every person I've talked to fully expects him to be back, so I'll just go with that for now. But for Travis Mack, a guy that I think is really, really intelligent, but has struggled at times in the Cup Series. He was with the Junior Motorsports Xfinity program. He moved over to Trackhouse with Daniel Suarez, and he picked up a win with Daniel Suarez back in 2022 at Sonoma. But in 156 NASCAR Cup Series starts, he has 11 top fives, 31 top tens, nearly went to victory lane this year with Shane Van Gisbergen at Watkins Glen if it wasn't for that last lap pass by Chris Buescher. I just think that he struggles at times where they're really good at hitting on some tracks. He just is completely out to lunch at other tracks. And I hope that they can figure that out over at Legacy Motor Club, because that's a team right now that really needs some sort of veteran leadership in their leadership positions, because they seem to be a little bit lost at sea and they're trying to find their way. And you can keep naming vice presidents and key people to the front office. You got to perform on the racetrack, though. And I hope Travis Mack and John Hunter Nemechek can click and get that type of performance, because I want to see more fast cars on the racetrack every single week. And watching the legacy cars kind of flirt around back in the latter half of the 20s into the early part of the 30s just isn't really where you want to see them at. So Travis Mack headed to Legacy Motor Club in 2025. Also, I know a lot of people are probably going to ask about the Freddie Kraft tweet where he mentions that he heard a silly season rumor that might be the craziest one of them all. Not going to say potentially what it is. I mean, heck, maybe even what I've heard is different than what he's heard at this point. But if I get a few more bits of information from people on it, then maybe we can talk about it into the future. But I just figured there would probably be some comments, especially on TikTok too, about it. So like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok and Blue Sky if you're on there as well, at Break Hard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, at Break Hard Blog.